To be perfectly honest, even though I got enough degrees in human behavior and dynamics and sociology, I don't even understand that thrust. Because, see, integration itself is countermanding any possibility of you ever acquiring power and wealth. You cannot empower yourself at the same time you integrate. Integration, Paul, means disintegration. It means reducing yourself to a microspec. Because in a society where the majority will win and rule and the minority will lose and suffer, why would anybody want to integrate? Integration is making black folk a guest. Integration means I will make you a guest. I will make you a guest in something that's owned and controlled by other people. I'll make you a guest in white suburbs, in white schools, in white businesses, in white organizations, in a white government. See, black folk can never acquire wealth and power as long as they're integrating. And what's going to happen, though, with this whole concept of integration, it's going to hold blacks in abeyance until these other groups, competing groups, come in and wipe them out and push them into a subclass structure. Now, you mentioned the busings, for instance. See, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen happen. See, my family, as an example, was a part of the family that owned the only black bus line that you've ever had in America. The only black chartered bus line you've ever had in America. And that was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That was a safe bus company. We didn't have just one bus, 3 buses, 5 buses, or 10 buses. We had over 500 buses. And our buses didn't just service the black neighborhoods. They serviced the black neighborhoods and the white neighborhoods, period. Mm-hmm. We put the white bus company out of business there. I mean, that was the Duke Power Company. Duke Power Company, named just like Duke University, and Duke Electric Company. We put them out of business because we ran a very competitive bus line. Now, our bus line was vertically integrated for black folk, which gave us a power base, a wealth base, an employment base. We hired our own people. We bought our own buses, repaired our own buses, operated our own buses, had our own drivers, our own mechanics, and we serviced both neighborhoods. But what put us out of business was not our inability for us to compete. It was a fact that blacks decided to integrate down in Montgomery. And when Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks integrated the buses there, rather than going in and buying the bus line from the whites and taking it over and operating it under black control, they decided that it was much better in the context of integration, which was social. Let's just socialize with whites. If whites are sitting on the front of the bus and we sit on the back, let's move up front with them and let's integrate with them. Let's intermix and make it a social issue. And so black folk then moved from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. Like, who really cares?
There is a growing number.
But let me finish the point now. Here's what happened now. When that movement moved up to North Carolina and came to North Carolina, the blacks in North Carolina says, we also want to sit on the front of the bus. And in North Carolina, we said, but we don't have any white buses you can sit on the front of the white bus. They said, well, why don't you all get some white buses so we can sit on the front of them? So our bus company went out of business. So then they brought in white buses, and now whites run the bus line. And the same thing happened to our black cab companies and our black movie theaters and our black restaurants. And everything black went out of existence because black folk see integration as being a social issue and somehow they feel if they get closer to the white society, they're elevating their status, and they're not. They're disintegrating.
Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu rasulullah wa ba'd. In the name of Allah, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his last and final messenger. As to what follows, family, friends, foes, haters, and hatettes, welcome back to the Feachaz. I greet you all in peace and love and no hatred of my heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon all of you. And before we begin, please like, please subscribe, please share, and please hit us up on Patreon for the Patreons. After Eid, after the 3 days of Eid, inshallah, we will be putting the archives on the Patreon. Okay, the archives on the Patreon, so you will get the exclusive looks of all the videos that led us up until this point, inshallah, and you get to see everything. Okay, so support us on Patreon. As you know, we got a lot of haters up in here, and we are talking about a very, very, very important topic, as usual, here on the Feachaz. And as you saw in the clip there, that is Dr. Claude Anderson. And he is talking about the the destructiveness of integration, how integration destroyed the black community, and integration in itself was a tool to usurp resources from the black community and just kind of send them wholesale to the white community, because black people thought that integration or integrating would somehow bring them power. Y'all hearing me? And we still think that up until this very day, we still think that integrating into the dominant white society will somehow bring you power. And so what black people do now, they are still stuck in this type of civil rights kumbaya, can't we all get along mindset? Because black people in general are the most welcoming, loving people on the planet. We do not practice racism, okay? We don't practice that. By and large, black people do not practice the art of racism. However, we've been so brainwashed by the enemy that whatever the enemy tells us a power move is, we actually believe that. And so from the strategies of the enemy, like with the black church, is that the black church was designed in order to pacify black people and to prevent them from rising up and rebelling. And so black people have historically been indoctrinated into this lay and pray mindset that as long as you keep praying, change gonna come. Just keep praying and praying and praying for it, and change is going to come. And we carry that mindset into Islam. That same mindset. Just keep praying and praying and praying, and change is going to come. If you put a seed in the ground, any seed, it doesn't make a difference what seed it is it just going to grow by you praying for it to grow? Black people all over the world praying for money, praying for wealth, praying for change, praying for this, praying for that, and not doing the things that they need to do in order to get to the next level. If you look at the dominant white society, what do they put over everything? They put productivity over everything, right? They want producers. They want people to produce. Black people want a nice talk, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, right? We'll talk about tomorrow, inshallah. Right? How black people prefer charisma over productivity. Likewise, black people prefer prayer over actual power. And they confuse the two. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a look at some of these videos, inshallah. We're going to comment on them. Like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon. Let's get to the first one, inshallah. 1 second here. And as I mentioned before, integration is a thing that works in maybe in 2 countries in the world, right? Canada being one of them, okay? And probably New Zealand. And that's about it. But everywhere else, integration is a demographic tool, as particularly to make sure that black people are not in any positions worth a damn. Just give me one moment, folks. 1 second here.
(1866) and up to about 19 into the 1920s, black folk had the greatest economic achievement they've ever had in this country. Even though it didn't occur under integration, it occurred under segregation. Those black folk had managed to acquire over 20 million acres of land. according to the United States Census in 1920. 20 million acres of land. But between 1920s and 1950s, they lost almost all of it. Back in the 1920s up to 1940s, we had black broom factories, we had black mattress factories. Almost every black major city had at least 2 cab companies. We had black bus companies. We had black shipyard up here in Baltimore. When I say black bus lines, I'm not talking about just having 3 or 4 buses. We had over 500 buses, and this is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And our bus company didn't just service just the black neighborhoods; it serviced the blacks and the white neighborhoods. We had 2 black cab companies. We had the Harris Cab Companies and the Campbell City Cab Companies. But they used to have their own restaurants. They had the best nightclubs in the country. The blacks had 2 baseball leagues. Each baseball league had 8 teams. We had over 500 of the best baseball players in the world. But what did they do? They wanted to integrate. So as soon as they put Jackie Robinson on the Brooklyn Dodgers, black folks said, we'll give up all of our black baseball leagues, black teams, and all our black players, and we can just get one black boy to play on a white team.
This is how black people give up their power. This is how they do it. They get played every single time for symbolism, for symbolic moves. You give up your entire infrastructure. Yes, of course, there was infrastructure that was illegitimately stolen. Yes, 100%. And up until this day, it gets stolen. However, the black mentality is now that we're Muslim, we need to help everybody else except for us. Everybody else. And the other people groups, your Muslim brothers, they do not see you in the same light. They don't see you like that. As a matter of fact, they piggyback off of your struggle, your sweat, your blood, so that they can push them and their communities ahead. Y'all hearing me? And once they leapfrog you, once that happens, they just ride off into the sunset and wake up and leave you in the dust. And what's coming in the near future, this is coming, is that black people will be a permanent underclass through what's happening through immigration laws, through what's happening through, you see how the not just in the States, but even here in Canada, in Europe and whatnot, how other groups are getting reparations before black people. Full-on reparations. Full on. The Asians got reparations just because some Trumpers made fun of them and stuff. Y'all hearing me? So this praying for power, just pray and wait, lay and pray, that's not going to cut it. There is a reason why Allah, he put this enemy who is so powerful over us. This is a wicked, devious enemy. And with that prayer, while you're praying, you have to do action. So as long as we continue with backwards behaviors, hating each other, fighting each other, putting our energy into nonsense, then we actually, it's like we are worthy of the position that we're in. Anyways, let's keep watching this video.
Black Americans were gung-ho about integration because we thought that would be our passport to freedom. We equated integration with freedom.
100%. And it's the same thing today. It's the same thing today, even after Islam. We out here as black people trying to empower all the Muslims. And none of the Muslims got your back, okay? Not a one of them got your back. But we're out here trying to empower all the Muslims. And these same Muslims got the nerve to ask you, are you black first or Muslim first? They have the nerve to ask us that. Who are you to ask us? Like, who are you? We ain't ever seen you support us in anything. Not a single thing. We're the front lines to support everything you have. And where are you when it's time to support us? And we still do it.
Brothers, we're not black. Let's stop talking like we're black.
We still do it. Ready to defend everybody who hates us. And then pray for change. That's how change is going to come. That's how change is going to come. Just praying for it. Y'all are tripping.
That scared whites to death. And see, at that time, you had whites, a lot of these white separate communities. You had white Polish communities, you had white Jewish communities, you had white Italian communities, you had white Irish communities. And white folks said, well, we're not going to if these blacks going to integrate, we're going to come together and organize as a unit. And so white folks then dropped all their little communities and said, no, we're gonna organize as a one white block. We're not going to talk about I'm being Polish and you're Irish and German anymore. We ain't going to do that anymore. We're going to stick together as a group. We're not going to let all these blacks come and penetrate us.
And all the immigrant communities, they do the same thing to us today. It's the same playbook. And that Islam first ain't changed a thing. Not a thing. Y'all are tripping. You need to wake the heck up. It is so amazing. You will find in some of these communities, converts, a large amount of black converts. In some of these cultural centers that they call masajid. Converts will volunteer for the security, as they do the black converts all the time. Always want the black converts to be security at every masjid. It's okay for us to be security, but it's not okay for us to be the admin of the masjid. Not a single one. It's okay to donate to the masjid, but it's not okay to, marry their daughters to our sons. You need to wake up. So now it's the same type of thing. These cultural centers, they will unite the same way in order to lock you out and benefit and participate in white supremacy. And guess what? Here's the ironic thing. You know what? I'm just going to show you. I'm going to save that for last, inshallah. If we have time, I'm going to show you, right? Because if I say it, you won't believe it. If I say it, you won't believe it. So let me just save it for last, inshallah. Let's keep watching.
Because we were doing things and becoming self-sufficient, that became a threat. So instead of them just coming out and attacking, because they couldn't just come out with an all-out attack, we were a little bit too strong for that, and we would have fought back, and there would have been a civil unrest that would have definitely undermined the security of the country. Instead, they said, well, let's invite them into a place that they've always coveted, and that is into the white estuaries of power, into the white citadels of power. Let us make sure we bring them in and incorporate them to us. And therefore, being that they're going to have to buy their facilities and all their materials from us, they're going to have to interface with us anyway. They're going to dress like us, act like us, and we will take the best of what they have and capitalize eventually and take it over. We will have quelled or stopped any threat or competition to our business. And that's exactly what they did.
So black folks stripped themselves of all their resources. They stripped themselves of their unity. They stripped themselves of their role models when all blacks used to live together. Then they had their own role models. All the doctors and lawyers and teachers with the black lived all together. You had a sense of community. You knew each other. You trusted each other. You worked with each other. You participated with each other. You learned how to buy from each other, to sell each other, to support each other, to care about each other, to love each other. When black folk up into integration, blacks never locked their homes.
We practice a very profound humanity. If an Asian opens a store in our community, we do not boycott and discriminate against them. If an Arab opens a store in our community, we do not boycott and discriminate against them. If a Jewish person opens a store in our community, we do not boycott and discriminate against them. We shop with all peoples. We treat all peoples equally. The problem is they're not treating us equally.
And this right here, what this man said, is why I believe that Allah's help will come. But as Allah says, his help is conditional. His help is conditional. This is a fact in any black community. Black people just do not practice discrimination. We don't do it. While every other people group overtly practice discrimination against us, even in the mosque, even in Muslim countries. It doesn't make a difference where we go. We are getting discriminated against. So Allah's help is conditional. It's conditional based on what? It's conditional of amanu, right? Doing the works. Belief rather. وَعَمِلُ الصَّالِحَةِ, to believe and to do the righteous works. It's conditional on La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Not just praying, not just believing. Our Christian background has really given us like a type of almost like a murji approach to the religion, almost like that. It's not murji, but it's kind of like that, right? Where we just believe, if we believe enough, hard enough, and ask Allah enough times without actually doing anything, then Allah will just help us from the sky. He'll come from the seventh heaven from the sky and just help us just like that. Why did Allah give us hands and feet? Why did he do that? Why did he give us brains and a mouth to speak with and ears to listen with? Why did he do that? So that we can just wait for him to come from Jannah to help us? This is exactly what we're doing as Christians. This non-violent protest stuff. Y'all hearing me? That stuff is just not going to cut it. If you guys know what cost-benefit analysis is, right? Cost-benefit analysis is essentially measuring the cost of doing one thing and the benefit you get from it. You get it? So, for example, if you, for example, put aside, let's say a half hour in the morning, every morning, and dedicate that time every single morning to memorizing Quran, then what you're telling yourself is that the memorization of the Quran will cost you a half hour a day so you can get the benefit of memorizing the Quran. You get it? So, with us, particularly Black folk, we believe that the benefit of us dilly-dallying on our social media platforms is worth the cost of our time and our effort in order to do so. The next time you decide to go and on Facebook, all I want you to do, if you're on your phone, put the timer on. Just set it. Right? It'll only take you a few seconds. Put the timer on, and then time from the time you start your social media experiment to the time you finish. How much time did you use on your social media? You will be shocked. The majority of you will be shocked. Okay? But yet you don't have enough time to read Quran. You know what I'm saying? You don't have enough time to study these type of things. But you're praying for change. And Allah's giving you the things that you need for that change, but you're not using it. And on top of that, you're fighting to be participating with other groups that really don't like you. They do not like you. Let's get into another one here. 1 second, brothers and sisters. Like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon.
When you say force yourselves upon others, upon the white community, how exactly do you mean that?
Well, any form of integration, forced integration, any effort to force integration upon whites is actually hypocritical. It is a form of hypocrisy involved. If a white man puts his arm around me voluntarily, that's brotherhood. But if you hold a gun on him and make him embrace me and pretend to be friendly or brotherly toward me, then that's not brotherhood, that's hypocrisy. And what America is trying to do is pass laws to force whites to pretend that they want Negroes into their schools or in their places of employment. Well, this is hypocrisy, and this makes a worse relationship between black and white, rather than if this could be brought about on a voluntary basis. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that what should happen is the black man himself should learn how to develop himself in the same sense that the white man has developed himself. Then they can both come together and recognize each other as equals.
Well, how can the black man develop himself as a separate society?
Well, it's easy. He's separate already. The fact that you have Harlem, the fact that you have the Negro ghetto and the so-called Negro slum, he's already.
That was in 1960 something. Okay. What is Harlem now? Put it in the chat, please. What is Harlem? What happened in Harlem? Does anybody know what happened in Harlem? The same thing he's prophesizing about integration. This is what happens. Somebody put in the chat what happened in Harlem, please. Who knows what happened in Harlem? And that's what happens when you see other people groups as the power and not Allah. Yes, Allah gives power to who he pleases and he takes it away from who he pleases. 100%. La shak. No doubt. However, there's a quirk in the black psyche. Okay? There's like this thing in the black mind where every other group they look to as superior to them. And so it's easy for other people to come and infiltrate black society. What happened in Harlem? Does anybody know what happened in Harlem? And we talked about this on the show as well. What happened? Akil's close there. Akil's very close. What is the word we're looking for? What happened in Harlem? Mind you, he said this it's like prophecy. It's like prophecy. Who knows? Does anybody know? He said this in the 60s. He said this in the 60s. Thank you, Akil. Exactly. Gentrification. That's your integration right there. That is your integration. You actually empower the enemy over yourself. Thank you. Gentrification. Thank you, MG. Gentrification. That's what happened. And what do you think is going to happen when this economic crisis hits to the black community? What do you think is going to happen then? You think you're going to have jobs? You think the single mother is going to get that government check anymore? You think you're going to have rights in jails? What do you think is going to happen? Don't even get me started, man. All right, let's keep watching this. Brother Malcolm.
Already separate. The fact that he's a second-class citizen is a political separation. The fact that he's the last hired and the first fired is an economic separation. Only in this form of separation, the black man is exploited. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that we should be separate, all right. But in this separate state or separate existence, the black man should be given the opportunity and the incentive to do for himself what the white man has done for himself. If you have an all-white neighborhood, you don't call it a segregated neighborhood, but you call an all-black neighborhood a segregated neighborhood.
Did you hear that? Ain't that the truth anywhere in the world? South Africa? Even all of Africa, if you want to be real? Brazil? Suriname? Guyana? Even in Indonesia, Malaysia, ain't that the truth internationally? The only segregated neighborhoods are the neighborhoods of the oppressed. And as we said before, is that an us problem or is that a them problem? Right? Looks like an us problem to me. That's what it looks like. Exactly. The white man's ice is colder. The white man's ice is colder. Can you imagine? That was a real thing. The white man's ice is colder. Let's continue.
Yeah, why? Because the segregated neighborhood is the one that's controlled by from the outside by others. But a separate neighborhood is a neighborhood that is independent, it's equal, it can stand on its own 2 feet, such as the white neighborhood. It's an independent, free neighborhood, free community. They're not trying to force themselves upon anyone, socially or otherwise. But the Negro neighborhood, which is inferior, is begging for a chance to integrate itself into that which is superior, which is not going to happen. It's going to cause trouble.
Well, in other words, then you think the Negro has first to raise himself to a status of equality with the white community.
Yes.
Now, what happens, assuming that he can do that? Would you then be in favor of integration, let's say, in the schools or any place else?
When you are equal with another person, the problem of integration doesn't even arise. It doesn't.
Question, brothers and sisters. How are black folk going to raise themselves to a level of equality to anybody? How do you think it's going to be done? Anyone? How do you think this is going to be done? Put it in the chat, please. How do you think black people are going to raise themselves to be equal to anybody? We are the bottom rung internationally. How is it going to be done? Please put it in the chat. I want to see where the intelligent black folk are.
Come up. The Chinese in this country aren't asking for integration. The Japanese aren't asking for integration. The only minority in America that's asking for integration is the so-called Negro, primarily because he is inferior, not inherently inferior, but he's economically, socially, politically inferior. And this exists because he has never tried to stand on his own 2 feet and do something for himself. He has filled the role of a beggar.
Well, how can a minority group in this country, so-called, stand on its own 2 feet?
Well, I can give you this example by explaining the difference between segregation and separation. Segregation is that which is forced upon an inferior by a superior. Separation is done voluntarily by 2 equals. If I have children and they live in my house, I care for them, they're dependent upon me, and their dependence upon me puts me in a position to regulate their lives, control their lives, tell them where to go, where they can't go. That's a form of segregation. But when those children become of age and they think they're equal with me, they leave my home. And when they leave my home and begin to set up a home for themselves, provide clothing, food, and shelter for themselves, that makes them independent of me. It puts them out of my jurisdiction. The fact that they can do for themselves that which I have done for myself makes me have to recognize that they are equals with me. And now the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that the black man in America for the past 400 years has been like a boy in the white man's house, begging the white man for a job, for food, clothing, and shelter. And then after the white man provides him with all of these things, he turns around and has the nerve to get angry at the white man when the white man tries to control his life.
But how, from a practical point of view, can the Negro be self-sufficient?
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, number one, he must have a knowledge of himself. And this gives him confidence in himself. He has been brainwashed by the educational system that exists here in America to the point where he feels he was a savage in the jungle when he was, before he was brought here. And this destroys his morale. So the number one thing that has to be done, he has to be retaught, he has to be re-educated and made to know that he's a man like anyone else. And then he can stand on his own 2 feet like others have done. I might add, the whites who came here only, say 50 years ago as immigrants have come into this country. They have set up businesses. They've developed these businesses into an industry. Some of them came here as poor immigrants, uneducated, and yet today they're economically independent. Now, the black man here was so-called free by Lincoln 100 years ago. The black man in America has a purchasing power of $20 billion. Now, and he's educated. If the white man can come here uneducated and as an immigrant, and within 10 or 15 years set up an industry that provides job opportunities and educational opportunities for black people, then if the black man, the black leadership, who has access to all of this money and has all of these degrees today, can't use his talent and his know-how to set up business opportunities, job opportunities, housing opportunities for the black people, the same as the white leaders have done for white people, then these black leaders need to get off the boat. They're not leading our people toward any kind of independence, but they're using their positions and their education and their talent to exploit our people worse than the slave master did during slavery.
Now there's a couple of points here, inshallah. Right. First of all, what Malcolm said about knowledge of self is paramount. Paramount. Knowledge of self educating yourself. There is an educational crisis that is not coming, it's here. It's already here. And if you want to see about this educational crisis, you have to look no further than Minnesota. It's here already. And we have to be responsible for ourselves. Y'all hearing me? The only way we're ever going to be made equal with anybody is with Allah's help and Allah's help only. Nobody else is coming to save you or to unite with you or to, look at you as a partner. Nobody's doing that. The entire planet looks at you as a slave, as a bottom feeder. The quicker you understand that, the quicker you understand the reality of the situation, the quicker you can do something about it. Furthermore, what he said about nobody else is asking to unite with other people groups. It's just black folk. Okay, and they're doing that because of that inferiority complex. We have an inferiority complex. That's why we feel the need to unite with other groups. And the people that are the same color as you, with the same struggle as you, with the same experience as you, speaking the same language as you, you can't unite with them. We have been trained to waste a lot of time. And I mean a lot. We have been trained to not value our time. And to focus on mundane symbolic things as to actually getting real power and going for it. I promise you, when he set up those white immigrants, they came and they set up businesses, I promise you, the vast majority, if not all of those white immigrants that came to set up businesses, all of them were praying for success. None of them are Muslim, okay? Maybe the Arab ones, maybe a few of them. Yes, they were. But the rest of them, they were not Muslim. And they got success. Why? Why are the non-Muslim kuffar who are praying to false gods achieving success, and the black Muslims going through all this oppression, all this racism, dealing with this thing as a lifestyle, not advancing anywhere? What is missing? What are we doing wrong? We have to take accountability, real accountability. And we talk about it all the time. The family situation, the breakup of marriages. Now the school situation is a serious situation. And this economic crisis, if you think you had it bad economically now, watch out. Watch out. All these governments now are talking about a global reset. When they mean global reset, they mean to reset you out of the economy completely. We as black Muslims, we can't afford to be disunited. We can't afford it. We are supposed to set the gold standard in terms of manners and education and in terms of our daily dealings, cleanliness, family. We have to set the gold standard because we have the Quran and the Sunnah. If we're not dedicated to setting the gold standard in that, then just be prepared to be enslaved for another 500 years. Subhanaka wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.